So my name is Tamara Prue, and I've been with the division for a few years now. I work in the department, well, the section of public inquiry. So I help people go over their applications when they come in. We get a lot of people from the public that aren't always sure how to fill out the applications because they can be kind of tricky. If you filled out applications, you know they're kind of tricky, or at least very specific on what we need. So answer a variety of questions from title to change applications to appropriate exchanges. Things that aren't really part of our division. We get a lot of different questions, and so that's what I do. So I know that the other presentations, you've held questions to the end. I actually don't mind having questions in the middle. If you have because we're going to kind of go over a couple of different sections. And if you have a question on that section, I say let's just tackle it then. If we get pushed too far behind, I'll just say, okay, let's save it for the end, and I'll catch it. I'll kind of catch it at the end to make sure you feel satisfied with the response. So, is that okay? Are you okay to do the microphone in between? Okay, just in case somebody has a question.
Whatever you'd like.
Thank you so much. All right, so let's see. Going forward, my topic is on making applications. So if you need to turn something into our office because you have some sort of action that you want to happen, you're going to be using an application. And so we've had people go over what those applications are already, but we're just going to kind of talk specifically what are the pieces of information you need to have that be complete so we're able to at least do that initial review and get that advertised properly. My basic agenda is going to be discussing the water right policy by area, and I'm going to go into that a little bit more than I usually do. Readiness for filing a complete application, introduction to public land survey system, discussion, I'm going to talk about the duty, diversion, and other use calculations and how to make an application map. And if I need to squeeze out the time, the application map will be a little bit shorter, but it's not too hard. They've got it so slick on the database now, it works really well. All right, so policy by area. I know you've seen this map. At least three of the last 4 presentations I've seen, this has come up. But this is a huge tool, a help, especially if you're not super familiar with all parts of the state. So like I said, people will call in, and while I've never worked in a regional office, so I don't dig into the deep issues that a regional office would handle, I could one day get a call from someone up in Box Elder, and an hour later I could get a call from someone in Price. And so there's a lot of information you have to kind of be able to process so you can help people through that. Okay, so I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna hurry and pop out to the internet here. Let's see. So we've got this up. So this is our home page. And that map is just right here on the bottom right-hand side. Click it up, and this is really great. On my slide, I have this count. I have Rich County, which is 23. And you can just click on it, and it will actually pull up a ton of technical resources, some basic resources, and it'll also give you in-depth sightings to like maybe what the boundaries are. I'll show you that in a couple of different areas. I know for me, I usually kind of skip some of this stuff when I'm answering questions, and I focus in on this sources and this general, and it kind of tells you what you can do. So for example, if I were, hey, I want to build a home up in this area, what is likely to work? And it'll tell you valley locations are open for groundwater applications, which are limited to domestic use of 1 family, the irrigation of a 1/4 acre, and a nominal amount of livestock, which usually means 10 or less. So right there, I'm like, okay, I could go and contact the Division of Water Rights. They could help me, or I could self-prepare an application to appropriate, meet those criteria, and that's likely something that I could turn in. Now, I probably couldn't go and file an application for 5 acres of irrigation because that's not the typical policy. So let's see, and the other nice thing, you can go to this map, and where the green highlighted section is, that's supposedly the policy where I'm looking. If I click on that, you kind of get a zoom in so you can see what cities are there. I'm going to go to one that's a little bit busier. Let's see, so if we go to, let's say, Area 51, again, you'll have kind of our basic policies. The short and sweet here, everything's pretty much closed, so you wouldn't be filing an application to appropriate in this area, most likely. But then again, you can click on here and you can say, oh, these are the areas that would cover this. Provo, if you look at the top, that's not going to be in the 51 area. That's going to be in our 55 area. But if you're trying to figure out which zone you're in, it's great to pull this map up because you can see, oh yeah, looks like I'm in that zone. And I don't know if we talked about it earlier, but this is a great little system. So our water right files, we have a huge room, and we have all these different files. If you were to come up and you were from the Cache Valley area, you would come in with your application to appropriate, and we would give it a water right number, and that water right number would start with a 25. So if I go into my file room and I pull a water right that starts with a 25, almost guaranteed I can say, hey, that's up in this area. If I pull a water right file that is in the 51 area, I know I'm talking southern, the majority of southern Utah County there. If I pull something out in 16, I know I'm dealing with the West Desert. So those water right numbers would correspond to the actual drainage of where that is. So that's kind of a nice way to use the number to locate where it's at. So for example, I'll get a call and someone's like, I just bought this piece of land and I'm trying to figure out what water rights go on this piece of land. So can you look it up by name? So we'll look it up by name, and it just happens that this person had land all over the state. And I'm like, well, can you tell me what area it's in? And if they say, well, yeah, it's out in Duchesne, then I can say, okay, instead of looking at all of these water rights, I can just kind of isolate and look at the files that happened in the 43 area. So you can kind of use that to organize yourself if you're ever doing research or trying to piece together pieces of information. So anyways, let's see. You can do these all over. Actually, let me go to the one. I use this one quite a bit. And on our Tooele area, some of the policies are more detailed and more, I don't want to say complete, but more detailed. Some of them are a little more vague. This particular area has some specific policies. And let's see, I'm going to pull this up right here. You kind of, let's see, I'm looking at the screen just to make sure you can see what I'm seeing. There is a black line that kind of bisects this 15 area right here. And so we basically have northern policy and southern policy, and they're pretty different. Down in this southern area, you could actually still file applications to appropriate for like 1 acre of irrigation, 10 livestock, and a house. But up in the northern half, you couldn't. And even that, there's more restrictions than that. And I'm going to unclick this picture for a second. They have a general policy that allows you to move water west, but you're limited on how far east you can move it. And what they do is they have a tool that if you knew pieces of information, like the water right you were starting with, maybe you just bought this, and you're hoping to move it to a piece over here, you could actually use this tool to get a basic idea if that's likely to pass the particular policy in that area. There are a couple of different regions that have these tools. So again, huge help when it comes to filing different applications. And just so you know, I don't think anybody would expect you to go to the policy page during the test to be able to pull this information out. But just in your, if you're out there and you're trying to do some research on our database, just know that it's here. And for each of these areas, you can even go down to the bottom and we have all the technical publications if you want to figure out what some of those guidelines or policies are based on. So huge amounts of information off of this policy page. Okay, that was a little bit longer than I've ever spent on that, but if we're good, and if you have questions and I don't notice you raising your hand, just start waving it really far and I'll see it eventually. Okay, I love the microphone this year though. Usually I always forget to repeat the question. That's gonna be great. I was watching it upstairs on YouTube before I came down. I'm like, it is great when I can hear the question. That's a big help. All right, so let's go back to this. Oops, let's see. There we go. All right, so skipping through here. I'm just going to skip through that because I showed that. So filing an application, there are things on an application that's really, you have to know these things. They're similar on all applications. It's just pieces of information you have to know to file these applications. So who's the owner of it? If it's a change application, are you the current owner on our records? Is it an application to appropriate? Are you the person or who the applicant is so we know where that address is, who's getting what for this file that's being created? Where are you going to be getting the water from? You have to be able to know that. it's hard to know what your project is if you don't have some idea. I'm going to be drilling a well, hopefully, or I'm going to hopefully, fix this spring up, so I'll be able to utilize that. How much water are you going to be using? Now, if you're dealing with a change application, so you've acquired a water right and you have a certain amount of water, that's a little bit easier of a question. If you're appropriating, most people don't know that water number means little to nothing to them, but they'll have a better idea of what uses they have. So if they come to me and say, I don't know how much water I need, I don't know how much flow I need, I know I need enough for a house and some irrigation, then we can start to figure out what that number would be. And we're gonna go over some of the calculations to help you figure that out too. And I will do my best that if it's gonna be on the test, I'll tell you. And then that way you'll have a good idea what you should pay attention to in case you wanna have a zone out moment. Let's see, so points of diversion, that's literally the point where you're gonna get water from. So if you have a well, that's a point of diversion. If you have a pump on a river, that's a point of diversion. If you have a spring and you're diverting from it, that's a point of diversion. If you've got a pump on a river, you divert it down a ditch and then you turn it onto your field, that's not a point of diversion. It's just the point of diversion is the point on the natural source of water. That's typically what we keep track of. Sure, there's a question over here, thank you.
Does the point of diversion need to be marked in the field some way with a post or any other kind of marker?
No, so what would happen is for the application, you would have to have a general idea of where you thought said diversion point was going to be. So I think I'm going to drill my well on that corner of the room over here. Once that application goes through the process, if it gets approved and you start developing it, when you finalize this information with the proof, so now you're submitting that information as saying this is what everything looks like. Now we realize that you've moved it to the other side of the room. Then it would get clarified, and so the proof from the engineer would kind of solidify where that really was. So, thanks. All right, so let's see. Beneficial use of water, that's a really big one. That's where a lot of different groups kind of come together. Title, we focus a lot on beneficial use. How much water you need for a certain thing, beneficial use. What you're using, beneficial use. I think people put a lot of money into wells. People over-focus that the well is the most important thing. I've got a well right here. I own the water right? Well, maybe. But if the use was on that piece of property, you might not. Kind of depends. So I know out in just general culture of talking out there, people focus on the wells a lot, and that's not always the main part. Beneficial use is always going to be pretty important. So place of use, that is where am I going to use the water? I'm going to use this for a house on my parcel, and I'm going to irrigate my yard. I'm going to have a 10-acre field, and it's going to be in this part of this 40-acre tract over here. We'll get more into that. See, application map to identify specific parcels on which beneficial use will occur. So when somebody comes in, they usually they might have a plat map, which is great, because sometimes people get lost when they look at Google and they can't find their parcel. But if they have that plat map, or maybe they've had an engineer prepare a professional map for the subdivision they're proposing, they come in so we can identify where it's all going to be located at. And that would be attached to the application. So not only for us, so we understand what they're trying to do, but as people go in and they see notice of this application out in the community, they can look to see what you're proposing to do too. And hopefully they can self-sort, oh, that's way over there. I don't care about that water being used. But if you were over here, I'm kind of worried about it. So those clear application maps really help people and save you some time down the road, I believe. We would have signatures of all the applicants or legal agents on the only form I can think of that you don't have to be the actual owner of the water right, would be the extension form. All other forms you would have to be who on our record show as the legal owner. Filing fee, for most of our applications, there's a filing fee, but not all of them. So those are the things you're gonna see on everything. If you pull up an application to appropriate, an exchange application, a change application, you're gonna go through that list of things that you need to fill out. Sure. We just have a question up front.
So if you're working for, let's say, a company that has water rights, who can act as that agent for that company?
Yeah, so just speaking from on the intake end, we don't get really deep into it. We're not going to have you verify that you're the president or the vice president. we assume that you would know if you have the authority to sign for the company. I've had people come in for ranches where they'll say general manager. And so we'll usually have them do their signature, and then we'll just write what their title, and they'll write what their title is. But we kind of leave that on them. I mean, if it's going to be contested, then the person that owns the water right, I suppose, could send a letter of concern in or file a protest saying, we didn't file this, or they could just withdraw it. So, all right, so what you need to know. When you come in to the office, or if you're preparing it to have it come in later, you need to understand what the basis of your water right is. Every day, multiple times a day, people are like, I want to drill a well. That is the starting conversation almost all phone calls that I have. And that's fine. And some people are like, I know you can't drill wells anymore, but that's not true. I mean, we issue a lot of drilling permits. I see quite a few that go out. So what is the basis? So do you already have a water right? Are you in an area where you could still appropriate? Because if you're in the middle of Salt Lake and you don't have a water right, you're probably not going to be able to drill a well unless you can find that. And you would have to get that stuff sorted first. Go through the deed process to own the water right, get our records updated so we show you as the owner, and now you could probably progress with filing a change application. Everybody, not everybody, a lot of people miss that step. And that's usually where our conversation ends for about 3 months, and then they come back where they're actually ready to start doing something. So you've got the existing water rights. So an application would be, I want to start a new water right. If you have an existing water right, but you need to modify what it's used, like I want to not do cattle anymore, I would like to irrigate. Or I don't want to do cattle on this land, I want to do it on this land. I need to add a second point of diversion because I want to do a pipeline so my troughs can be in a bigger area. Any changes you make to that application as it exists, that's when you would file that change application. Contracts, so we see a lot of exchanges through Weber Basin Water Conservancy District, and that's kind of what we call contractual water. There are other types of contract water that happens, but usually those exchanges are the common ones. They have the water right, you're going to use it, they're going to release water out of the reservoir, replacing what you use. But you still have that contract, which is the basis of your water right. Or in some cases, it's happening a lot, shares in an irrigation company. If you have shares in an irrigation company, you want to drill a well, which is a private source, rather than using ditch water, because maybe you want to build that house. We get multiple calls of those every week as well, where people just want to drill a well based on their shares because they can't find a water right, or there's not a contract type water that they can use, and those shares are their only available right to water. And so what is the basis of your water right? That has to be the first thing that you recognize before you start dealing with some of these applications. You have to know where you're going to divert from. So you turn in a proposal to us, we know that what you end up doing probably won't be exactly what happens, but you really need to have a ballpark. I've had people come in, they're like, where do you think I should drill the well? I'm not paying for the well. I have no idea. I can tell you how to place it on a map so you can have the biggest diversity of choice, but you've got to be able to tell me about where you want this point to be. Place of use, you've got to tell me the piece of land it's going to be on. If you have a 300-acre parcel and you just want a house or a cabin, you might even have to tell me this is kind of the area we think we're going to put the cabin. So, and that makes things easier down the road in case you ever sell it. And again, just some of the specificness that you can have will help you or people that own that water later. What are you going to do with the water? You have to be able to tell me if you're going to irrigate for inside house, if it's going to be going for municipal use, but you have to know how the water is probably going to be used, because that's how we're going to base all of our evaluations once you have the application in. All right, common filing mistakes. There is a huge, we have mistakes all the time, and that's okay. I think everybody's in the office is pretty helpful with kind of walking people through the mistakes. We definitely try not to make it harder. We know that some of this stuff is really hard, but we also have to have it right. So you've got to have proper ownership. People get stumped where they've purchased a piece of land. It comes with a water right. They bought that land 10 years ago. They never bothered to get ownership updated. Now they need to do a replacement well that's more than 150 feet away, so they have to file a change application. but we kind of get stuck because they're not the owners on our record yet. So now they're backtracking, trying to get that taken care of. So I'm sure that a lot of times we're seen as kind of the bottleneck, but it's just the process. So the more we can stay on top of things with ownership, at least you're already on that platform to take some action. Let's see. So you need to complete a segregation. The other thing that'll happen is, awesome, you are the owner on file, but it just happens to be one of those water rights where people have sold it off. It used to be one big farm, but now they're basically selling it off in little chunks to different owners. So you come into the office like, I want to file a change so I can drill a well. Okay. We pull it up. Oh, there's like 50 owners on this and you all own a piece. But your name's on there, great. We just need to do a segregation first. Usually, it's something that can be done in office. It's just got a small fee associated. But there are times, just when I say that they'll get really ugly and they will be very difficult to work through and they can take a lot of time. So the segregation, as long as you're open-minded, we'll do our best. But they can get kind of crazy. Yeah, go ahead.
Is the segregation just a change application, or is it?
I can repeat it.
I just when they're talking about the types of applications, segregation didn't come up, and I was curious how that fit into everything.
So to me, it's kind of like a boxcar. Usually when you're going to see segregations would be most commonly when you're getting ready to file a change application. So you're going to have a listing. I own a water right, and I sell 1 acre-foot of water to you. You go through the title update process, and if I had 10 acre-feet of water, now I've sold you 1. On the division record, it would show that now I own 9 acre-feet. It would put you on as an owner of this water right as well for 1 acre-foot. And now with the change application, you can't file that change. You have to file the change on the entire amount of water. So unless you and I are doing the same project, you can't really file a change on the part of the water I own. I can't file a change on the part you own, but we're stuck on this water right together. So the segregation just administratively moves it so you'll get a new water right number that's all your own. So I'm going to end up with a 9 acre-foot water right. You're going to have a 1 acre-foot water right. They'll have kind of that parent link, but now you have your own water right so you can do what you want, not connected to me anymore. So it is an application. It does have a fee, but it's specific when you would use it.
For segregation, no change application.
Right.
New number, same priority.
Yeah, everything's the same. Nothing changes other than the water right being moved over to its own file. So let's see. So proper evaluation of the water rights. That's when segregations can also become ugly. Sometimes you get all these water rights that are kind of lumped together, and maybe you have 5 water rights and they all irrigate this field. And I'm sure someone's going to talk about this in more depth than me. But they all do this. Well, when you come to us to have it segregated, because we want to file a change on just a little tiny piece of one of the water rights that irrigates this big field over here, we don't know how to make the accounting of that on the database. So a lot of times we go to the regional office and say, hey, can we do some research here to see if we can identify how much water is associated with this water right so we can get that out. Sometimes it's not something we can do in-house, and so to get that water right or that water right group properly evaluated can really take some time, and that's frustrating, especially if you are trying to get your building permit, because that's where people seem to be, is they get really frustrated trying to get that building permit. They want their house built, and they're looking at months before the application can even get filed. So common mistakes. We try to work through them. We try to make it as pleasant as we can. Sometimes the best we can do is smile, though. So intro to public land survey, so when I first started working here, my background's actually in horticulture, landscaping, growing plants. And when I started working here, it was just to get some field experience. But I fell in love with water rights. And it's really changing. It's never boring. There's always something new, even though it's the same water that we've probably been dealing with for a century. So when I first started, Intro to Public Land Survey was the first thing I learned. I'm like, what a genius system. You can give me one sentence of garbled language, and I know exactly within like a mile of where we are in the state. What a brilliant system. So I'm going to try to share that with you. I know a lot of you are professionals and probably know this, which means you'll ace this part on the test. There are a couple of questions, and hopefully I've put some slides together that will help you be able to refer back to it if you have questions. So township, range, and section. A township, you have the townships run north and south along the state, and the ranges will run east to west. We do have two different grid markings. I'm gonna show you that more in just a second. So for all of you smarty pants that know we have the Uinta Basin and the Salt Lake, just hold on a second. We'll get there. So Temple Square is essentially our 0 point on a grid. If I go 6 miles up, which would be one township, it's gonna be called 1 north, 2 north, 3 north. If I go below it, it's gonna be 1 south, all the way down to the bottom of the state. So all of a sudden now you know exactly the location of the state you're in based on what township. Township north, you're going up from Salt Lake. Township going south, you're going down. Then ranges are just the same, except for they go east to west. Starts again right at Temple Square. You go west, you're going more this way. You're going east, you're going up to the Park City, out towards the Duchesne until it gets weird, because Duchesne's where it gets different. But you can really narrow it down in Township 2 south, range 3 west. Now you know within a 6 mile zone of exactly where you're talking about in the state. I can't navigate road maps. I can't use a road map as fast as I can this. It's pretty cool. So now each township and range, it gets broken out into a box. I'm gonna see, okay. I hope this transfers over to the people that are remote, but you can see this yellow box, thank you. You can see this yellow box right here, and it's kind of blown up. And you can see that there are 36 sections. So now, instead of being 6 miles, a 6 by 6 mile section, you have a 1 mile by 1 mile section. This, if you go to the green box here, can be broken down further into quadrants. So one quadrant, we have the northwest portion, and I'm going really slow because this mouse has a really slow setting, so I'm sorry, I'm not really that slow. The bottom corner has southwest, but we can even take it one step further, and we can break it into one more quadrant, and we could be up here in the northeast, which is also in the northeast larger portion. And so now I can use a little bit of a sentence and get to a 40-acre piece in the state of Utah. I'm like, that's pretty neat. You're gonna have to refer to some of this, so make sure you have this page up when you take your test. All right, so let's see, I've gone through most of this. Now, one thing about the townships and range, there are things that can throw it off. It's nice to think that we live on a perfect grid, but if we're going along a river, a lake bed, you've got a lot of mountains, these sections they're not always a perfect 6 by 6 square, but in the valleys, they're pretty good usually. All right, so typical corner sections on this little scale here, oftentimes when you're talking about a point of diversion, you'll refer to a certain corner section. These are your typicals: northwest corner, west quarter, southwest, south, southeast, east, northeast, north. That's just the point where you're going to start a description, which we'll get into that more in just a second. Okay, this is, let's see, the Utah Base Meridian. So like I said, we have two. The Salt Lake covers most of the state. And that's the starting point there is about Temple Square. Then we also have the Uinta Base Meridian, and that starts about 9 miles north of Roosevelt. And it's kind of that little bowl. We'll see this here. One of the other mistakes that I didn't mention will happen when somebody goes to file an application in this Duchesne County area, but they don't change it to Uinta, the Uinta Basin determinator. They'll leave it as Salt Lake County. And I actually think that in our office we do that a lot because we're handling a lot of applications and everything on our computer defaults to Salt Lake because that's most of them. And if we forget to do the drop down and we put it as US, or if you're doing it as a professional and you do it as US and we copy it and don't catch it while we're putting it onto the computer, well, all of a sudden you think you have a property that's out here, but really what you've described is something out in Tooele. And so if you can imagine, if that advertises, people out in Tooele are going to be looking at saying, hey, does that bother me? And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But when we get to it, eventually we're going to catch it and we're like, oh, we didn't advertise that right. And now you're back into that cycle where you've got to wait for advertising again, which is 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the cycle. So that's one thing that you just have to be cautious, be aware that there are 2 different basin zones. All right, so how do we use this? So if we're marking a point of diversion, if you're a professional and you're preparing a change application on your own and you've got to describe to us where the proposed well is going to be, how do you do that? Well, I'm going to give you a couple of samples. And we'll just kind of read through these and we'll click through them. So locate south 500, west 12,000 or 1,200 from the east quarter corner. So we would have to start at the east quarter corner. We're going to move south 500 feet and we're going to move west 1,200. And so that's where that point is being described. Okay, so north 2,000 from the southeast corner, you start down at the southeast, and we're going to be moving up. Okay, so that's where you'd be describing there. The last one, south 1,300 feet, east 4,000 feet from the northwest corner. So again, we find our starting point, which is the northwest corner here. We're going to go south 1,300, and we're going to go east 4,000. And that's going to put us there. And that's the point you're describing in that sentence. So if you come into the office and have us help you, or if you mail one in and you make mistakes, we usually are kind of converting and making sure we've got that information properly so that application is clear to people when it's advertised. Then the place of use kind of goes hand in hand. A lot of times we'll have, well, I'll hold that thought for just a second. Let's do the easy stuff and then I'll get to the tricky stuff. So I have a big ranch. I need to mark what are my places of use. So if I were to mark the northwest quarter of the northwest quarter, this kind of reads backwards. It's smallest getting bigger. So I kind of have to read them backwards to remember where I'm at a lot of times. So we have the northwest quadrant backwards. The little one is small. So the big one is the northwest quadrant, and it's the northwest quadrant of that. So let me pull that up and you can see. So that's the northwest of the northwest. If you want to go to the south half of the southwest, so here's the southwest quadrant, and if we're going to have the south half, it's going to be right down here. So the north half would be this entire section. The northeast of the southwest, so we're in the northeast portion of the southwest section. And then last one, south half of the northwest, so here's the northwest and there's the south half, and the south half of the northeast. So those are some ways in legal survey language that you can describe where your place of use is going to be. Now, the one caveat to this, this would be a 40-acre tract. This little blue box here at the top is 40 acres. Well, if you're out in a more rural area, your property might be 40 acres. It might be 300 acres. But if you're in the middle of the city, there's a good chance there's more than 40 parcels in one 40-acre tract. So what I would say is if your property is smaller than that 40-acre piece, you probably actually want to highlight. You want to highlight where your parcel is, and it would sit inside this box, but we'd see exactly where your place of use is in that parcel. But if you're out where the parcels are big, that's not as big of a deal. All right. I'm not a math teacher. I liked math. I'm not a math teacher. So we're going to go, I get this question on occasion. So do you have something on your computer that tells me what everything means? How do I switch it from irrigation to cattle? How do I know how many acre feet of water I need for irrigation? I mean, there's a few moving pieces, and it's not hard, but I know when I started, it took me a few months to get comfortable with it, and that was doing it all the time. So I understand that this can get hard. What I'm going to do is we're going to kind of talk about the basics, and then I'm going to have a few sample questions. The question at the end is going to be about diversion depletion. I know somebody was asking about that earlier. I'm sorry if I pointed at you and it wasn't you. Somebody asked about diversion depletion. We'll get into that a little bit. Diversion depletion will not be on the test, okay? So you don't have to figure that out. We're just going to go with kind of the basic diversion samples. Okay, so common terms, cubic feet per second. Typically, that's going to be a flow. That's how fast water moves through a single point. So a unit of measure used to quantify the rate of flow from a water source. So it's area times, which is feet squared, times velocity. So this is a speed. How much water can I take at any 1 second during the day of a year? The acre foot amount, so that is a unit of volume defined as 1 acre of surface area to a depth of 1 foot. So depth of water in feet times acres of land. So that starts to make a little sense when you start talking, when you put duty. Duty is this other word that comes in. It's like, well, what's your duty? Well, my duty is a 4. What does that mean? So how many feet of water do you need to apply to your ground in your average year to get a crop? So in most of the state, you're going to need 4 feet of water to get a crop. But sometimes you're up in the mountains, it's a little cooler, maybe your season's shorter, maybe you only need 3 feet of water to get a crop. Maybe you're in St. George and it's a 6, so you need 6 feet of water to get a crop. It could be because of the soil type, it could be because of a variety of factors. Yeah. So they have a map that's on the database, on our website. You can go to water right data and they have forms. I think Jim will probably cover where some of that is. If not, you can come grab me or ask any of us to show you. You can call. But it'll show you what the different duties are for the different areas. So if you're trying to figure out how much water you need and you live in Tooele, it's a duty 4, so you're going to need 4 acre feet of water per acre. I only want a half acre, so I'm going to need 2 acre feet. But that duty is kind of what's going to convert the acres of irrigation into a volume of acre feet. And I find that when you're converting all of this stuff, if you can get everything into acre feet amount, it becomes easier to move it back and forth. But you'll see how that works in just a second. Okay, so duty calculations, acres times the duty equals how many acre feet per year. The irrigation duties obviously vary by area. Usually they're between 3 and 6, but there can be decrees that specify different amounts. Let's see, so domestic uses, how much water do I need if I want to build a house? About 0.45 acre foot per full-time house, 0.25 acre feet if it's a cabin or a seasonal use. Livestock, this is where people like to convert a little bit. So we typically just call a livestock unit, it's kind of the equivalent of a cow or a horse. They use 0.028 acre feet per year. But sometimes people are like, I want sheep. How many sheep can I get? And that's going to be one of the questions you'll see here in a second. But basically you get 5 pig, sheep, goat size animals per 1 cow or horse. You can also get 33 1/3 chicken per horse. So we want to get it small. We can get it really small. But yeah, practical. Okay, so what I've done here is I think we're going to go through, I don't remember if we have 5, oops, I can't do it that way. I don't remember if we have 4 or 5 sample problems. There's going to be an equivalent sample problem on the test. It won't be the exact same numbers, it won't be the exact same places, but they'll be laid out really similarly if you need to review it. So sample problem number 1, a rancher wants to start a farm near Dugway, Utah, which is our area 16. How much water does he need for 5 acres of irrigation and 50 cattle year-round and a full-time home? So the first thing we would have to figure out would be, well, what duty is that area? And I believe on all the questions I've given you the duty, so you don't have to go and use resource material while you're on the test. The irrigation duty in Dugway is 4 acre foot per acre. So he wants 5 acres, we'll times that by 4, which would give us 20 acre feet for that use. He wants 50 cattle, we times that by 0.028 acre foot, and that's going to give us 1.4 acre feet. We have 1 full-time home, that's going to be 0.45 acre foot. So see, now we have everything in acre foot, it gets pretty easy. Now we just have to do a sum of all of those, which is 21.85 acre feet. That's the amount of water that person would need on that application. They get more exciting, I promise. Although I think with math, sometimes it's nice when it's not too exciting. Let's see. Sample problem number 2. A rancher has a water right for 300 cattle. How many sheep could he provide for with this water right? So he doesn't have to make a change application. It's all livestock to us. 300 ELU, but he's going to change. He's not going to do his cattle anymore. So we would take 300 cattle. We would times it by 5 sheep. And he could run 1,500 sheep without, that's not going to be a problem for us as long as his troughs are in the same place. Okay, sample problem number 3. A developer wants to build a 10-lot subdivision in Delta, Utah, which is area 68. Originally, I was going to make you look all of the duties up, but then we decided to be nicer. Each lot is supposed to have enough water for a 1/4 acre of irrigation, 2 horses, and a full-time home. How much diversion will the water right need to have? Okay, so this adds a little, we're going to have to do a little bit extra. So let's figure out what each lot needs, and then we'll times it by 10 to see what our total amount of water will need to be. So each lot's a 1/4 acre times 4, the duty is 4 in Delta, equals 1 acre foot of water. 2 horses is going to be 0.056 acre foot. Full-time home is going to be 0.45 acre foot. So each lot's going to need just a little bit more than 1.5 acre foot of water. So the total project, we times that by 10 lots, he's going to need about 15 acre feet of water to do this project like he wants. And if it's in an area where he doesn't already, if that water's not already for that, he's going to have to file that change. Now, one thing to note here, we're talking diversion. Okay, I've made all of these problems, so I don't even have to consider depletion, really, which is kind of cheating in my world because we always have to consider depletion. But just know, the diversion is how much you can divert out of that well or out of that river for those certain uses. And like I said, I'll touch on depletion, but these were definitely set up to not have to address them because I didn't want them to be too hard for you guys. Depletion took me at least a year, probably 4. Okay, sample problem number 4. A farmer has a water right in Brigham City that serves 100 cattle year-round. He wants to change the water right to supply 1 full-time home, 1 part-time home, 10 horses, and an irrigation for his yard. What is the maximum area in acres that can be irrigated after the other uses are accounted for? This is the hardest question, but this is what we do every day. Because somebody will come in and is like, well, I know I want a house. I know I want 2 horses. How much irrigation can I have? So this is what we do the very most of, I feel, in my department. So how are we going to start this? Well, we've got to figure out how much, of what he has right now, what does he have? What's his total acre foot amount? So we take 150 cattle, that's year round, we times that by 0.028 acre foot, and then we get, so he's starting with a water right that's probably for about 4.2 acre feet of water. Now we know he wants a full-time home, we know he wants a part-time home, we know he wants 10 horses. So we can put that information down, and then we're going to subtract that from our 4.2 to see what we have left to figure out what the irrigation is. So let's see, we'll work through this. So 0.45 acre foot for the full-time, 0.25 for the acre foot for the part-time, 10 times 0.028 is 0.28 acre feet for the livestock units. So the total there, which maybe isn't super clear, the total of those was this 0.98 acre foot. And we're going to subtract that from the total that we have to work with of 4.2, which is going to equal 3.22 acre feet of water. That's what's being utilized. So, or excuse me, that's what's left that he can use towards his irrigation. So then we take the 3.22, we're going to divide it by 4 because that's the duty in that area, and that's going to tell us that he can have up to 0.805 acres of irrigation. Yeah?
Where'd you get 150?
100 and?
When it says 100.
That's, oh, you know what? That is because I made a typo. I'm sorry. Please don't do that. You know, I knew that I had a typo on it from last time, and I couldn't remember where it was, and you read something so many times, you just can't see it. I am sorry. So, yep, there is the error there, and let's see, and let me just tell you the right way really quick. Yep, 150, perfect. We should be 150. Thanks, you guys. All right, so let's see. So those 4 oh, what? I know, yeah, good job. You guys should all get A's. You passed. Sorry. Okay, so those 4 types of problems, those are what you're going to see on the test. So if you have one that pops up, you can kind of refer to these notes. Slightly different scenarios, same concepts. Okay, diversion versus depletion. This is the trickier part, and a lot of people hear things like, am I going to get a haircut? What's going to happen? Am I going to lose any of my water? There's a variety of things people say, but I would also say that depletion issues are not the only reason why you could get a haircut. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to that slide. But let's just talk about this. So you file a change application, which that's probably a great place to start. If you file an application to appropriate new sources, we don't look at depletion on a new application, okay? If you come in though and you want to file a change, that's when we have to look at it, because whatever that application was originally approved for, those are the historical values that everyone kind of assumes has been coming out of the water system. So we look at, so we're going to kind of look that if you're going to change it to this use, are you going to use more water, and there's going to be less available for people that also have the right to use water in that area as well. So diversion is the water removed from the source. That's the number everybody says, hey, I've got 2 acre-feet of water. They have 2 acre-feet of diversion. Okay, that's usually what they're saying. They don't necessarily recognize the difference, and that's okay. That's why we're here. We need a job, so it's good for us to describe this all the time. Depletion is the amount of water that is consumed after application. So irrigation usually uses about 50% of that water. 50% is going to flow back out into maybe groundwater, maybe back in the river, but some of it, that water is going to be evaporated off. The plant's going to use it. It's not going to be available anymore. Less delicately, if you have livestock, they're going to drink it. It's not coming back out as water. So the consumption is what does not go back to the system. So when we're looking at the change applications, we have to look at the historical values for both the diversion and the depletion. And we can't let either be enlarged. So you have to have a number at or below your historical 2 figures. Okay, this is sample 5. Don't stress, just think. If you have a question, you can ask. So water right owner has a water right for 3 acres of irrigation. The duty is 4 feet per acre. He wants to change the use to include 50 cattle. How many acre-feet of water will he be able to divert after the change? Assume the rate of depletion for irrigation is 53%. So this is how we would start to tackle this. So we're going to establish the historical diversion and depletion. So same thing, how many acre-feet are we talking about? 3 acres times a duty of 4, 12 acre-feet. And then we're going to figure out what's the depletion in that area. I think I used Camas, or up and around Camas for this. What's the depletion for that use? So 12 acre-feet, it usually consumes about 53% of the water in that area. So the depletion is going to be 6.36, just slightly more than 50%. That makes sense. Hopefully I didn't make the same math mistake. Let's see, of depletion. So those are our 2 values. Those are our benchmarks. Whatever you propose to us can't exceed one of those 2 numbers. Either they have to be at or under both of them. So what's he proposing to do? 50 cattle, and we figure that's going to be 1.4 acre-feet of water, noting that cattle is 100% consumptive. Nothing's returned. So irrigation was easier because some of it came back. Now all of it's being used in this use. So 6.36 acre-feet, and we're going to subtract, because that's the depletion we have to work with. I better use this and not my finger. See, this is what we have to work with. We're going to subtract it from our 100% consumptive use of cattle, 1.4 acre-feet, and that's going to equal 4.96 acre-feet of depletion that's left. Now, we're not talking diversion, just the depletion. That's how much. So when we figured out how much can we irrigate, whatever that answer is, it can't deplete more than 4.96 acre-feet of water, because that's all that we have left after the cattle come in. So we can divide that 4.96 by the depletion rate, and that'll tell us we have 9.36 acre-feet remaining for diversion. Add the last little caveat of dividing that by the duty, so this water right could be for 2.34 acres of irrigation and 50 livestock without impairing that historical use. So I'm going to do this in a table because I like tables better than words. And just a summary, so when we get the uses, if we were to just figure out what the acre-foot value were for each of those uses, now we've gone to 10.76 acre-feet. We started with 12 acre-feet of diversion. For this change, they would have to limit themselves to 10.76 acre-feet of diversion. That's where people tend to refer to the haircut. You're taking my water away. Actually, we're just keeping that depletion number honorable. We're keeping it the same or lower than. So this is a summary. So you have the historical use, 12 acre-feet, rate depletion on there, the amount depleted. And you'll see these types of tables on the orders of the state engineer at times, if they have it listed out. So proposed uses, this is what you wanted to do, was the acres of irrigation, 50 livestock. They show you the depletion rate and the summary of those numbers. And you can see, this would have been the final, is your diversion now is 10.76 acre-feet, not 12, but your depletions are still the same, which is still good. Why it feels like a haircut, so let's put these charts up, assuming we didn't look at depletion at all, and look what happens. So now our diversion here is 12 acre-feet, But because we didn't reduce that diversion, when you add that livestock, our depletion goes up to 7.02 acre feet, which is bigger. So that could potentially impair people that were using, let's say, the leftover water that should have gone back in the system, but now it doesn't. All right, let's see. So the depletion's exceeded by 0.66 acre feet. All right, I'm gonna stop there. Now, I'm certainly not a diversion depletion expert, but I'm pretty good. So if you have any questions about that, we can do those now, or we can just keep moving. Good, because I'm good with no questions here. You guys are great. You guys should come back for more. This is awesome. Okay, so making an application map. If you don't have a professionally drawn map, you can do this on your computer at home. Our technical services department has put awesome tools in that make it really easy to generate a map that's useful for us, useful for people reading, that potentially want to protest, useful for you. So I'm just gonna, what we need on a map for an application, it's not a proof, it doesn't have to be perfect. We need to know the basic, you've got to be able to tell us where the basic place of use will be. And you need to know the approximate place of the well or point of diversion. Okay, the application map wizard, you can go in and it's going to guide you through how to do this, and I'm going to show you some samples here. Let's see, so this allows a user to select a point of diversion, a place of use from an aerial photo, and print a map to accompany an application. It can be generated with signature lines. We don't care if you're turning in a change application, you prepare a map, and it all comes in together. You don't have to sign the map separately. What happens more often is we'll get an application and there's a problem with the map or no map at all. Municipal use doesn't always have to come in with a map in case you're dealing with municipalities. Service areas don't have to come in with that map. But if you should have a map and it doesn't come in with a map, we would make a call to you saying, hey, can we use this? Let me generate you a map, review it. Does that look right? If it does, sign it and send it back, and now we'll add it to your application. If we had to get it secondary to that application, then we would ask for your signatures on there. So it's nice, you can just flip a button and get your signature lines. That's great. If you don't have the signature lines and you still sign it, we'd take it. Okay, not acceptable as a proof map. If you're an engineer, you can't use our map wizard to make an adequate proof map. Okay, so this is a sample of an application map. And so I'm going to show you a couple of goodies. So when we were talking about the place of use on an application, the place of use for this would be the northwest of the northeast and the northeast of the northeast. That's 80 acres. This parcel's not that big, but I can clearly see where this water right is proposing to be used. You can see the parcel, makes it pretty clear. So that's when you would just kind of highlight. On the application, yes, I would still use northwest of the northeast and northeast of the northeast as my 40s. But on my map, I would clearly see what parcel I was talking about. And let's see, so this is what they look like. You have the different options, type of application map. You can select change, exchange, new application. You just click that. You can click down here on number 2. And you don't have to know the public land survey description of your point. You can just say, hey, I want my well right here. And you click it. Well, not on a PowerPoint, but on the database, you can click it, and it will just generate that point for you, which is great. Place of use, same thing. It's going to give you an option to draw it. You can just select the 40. So if you're dealing with a big piece of property, you can just select the 40s. You just draw an outline, and that's great. That's good to go. And then you just print it, and that's really nice and easy. We used to have to, it was a little bit trickier about 4 or 5 years ago, and they added that map wizard, and it's made it really nice. So we also have tools on our website to search if you're doing research with water rights. I spend a lot of time here too answering questions, trying to get on the same page with people, seeing what they have. We call it map viewer, will come up under that way, map search. Basically it's an ESRI type program. And it defaults with an aerial background, but you can change it. You can change it to a topo. You can change it to 10 years ago. You can change it to 20 years ago. You can zoom in. You can zoom out. You can see on the topo map, or excuse me, on the aerial map, I've kind of got a star right here. It's because on this side-by-side, I've just zoomed in, and that's the point I've zoomed into. You can do a lot of research. You can pull up all the points of diversions that exist out there, and you can click on them to see what they are. You can click into them. So I think my next page here, let's see. So if you go into this, you can see some of the different wells and the points that you can go on. You'll see some of these 2s and 4s. That means there are 2 different water rights coming out of that point. You can click on it and you'll see the different water right numbers that show up. You can click right on that and it'll take you to some of the information on that water right. So that's been really helpful. You can also select boundaries if you want to know, let's see, adjudication book boundaries. You can click on that and you can see where the different books are that they've been doing. You can click on water right areas. Is this the 43 area? Is this the 15 area? But you can go and you can turn on parcels, which I like if I'm making a map because I like to see the parcel. But you can just select a variety of things on it. You can also search. If you're trying to figure out, hey, I have this water right number, I want to know where it's at. You can just select water right number, put in your water right, and it's going to zoom you to that. Sometimes they're complicated, but I think a lot of the times it works out pretty well. You can put it in by address. We get a lot of real estate agents that contact us a lot, and they're trying to figure out if there might be water that goes with that property. That's not how they say it. They say it, I need to know if water rights are coming with this land, and we have to say we don't know, but we can see if there's any indications that you can research a little bit more. But you can put in the address or the parcel ID to see if maybe there's a historic well there or something, and then they can kind of figure out to see if that would still be associated with that land or not. All right, so that's pretty much all I have. I hope I started at 1, because if not, I am way short. Did I start at 1? Okay, great. Topics covered. So again, elements common to all applications. The intro to the public land survey system, basic water right calculations, and how to make a map, which you're not going to be tested on making the map. That's just so if you're out there doing it, you kind of get a sense of how to do that. Any questions? All right, that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much. Good luck with your test tomorrow.